Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel where today I'm going to be talking about my favourite Disneyland Paris attractions. So this is the second video in my mini-series all dedicated to my trip to Disneyland Paris. I have already spoken about the travel and accommodation I went for. And in today's video, I'm just going to be focusing purely on the attractions that I enjoyed at the resort. I'm not going to talk about any of the roller coasters as that will be in my next video. So this is just purely the dark rides and the other attractions that the two parks have to offer. I was lucky enough to experience most of them when I went, so there may be one or two things that don't make the list, but again, the reasons why will be described in another video coming up later on in the series. But without further ado, let's get straight into today's video. So the first ride to make my list is Les Voyages de Pinocchio. I'm so sorry with my pronunciation of this, but as you can kind of guess from the character name, it is a dark ride based around the tale of Pinocchio. So I absolutely loved this ride. I think for quite an old ride, I think it may be one of the first rides that were put into Disneyland Paris in the Disneyland park. I may be wrong, so please do comment down below if I am, but for quite an old ride, I think there's some really good effects in there. All the set pieces, there's not any screens at all in there, from what I can remember, so it's all physical set pieces and it all looks amazing. And all the animatronics still work. It's all very clever and it's a nice kind of ride system as well. The vehicle does kind of like sway a little bit from what I remember. It's quite easy to move around, and with a lot of Disney rides, a lot of it is quite 360, so it means you can see everything and you don't really miss out on any of the elements during the ride at all. There is one part of the ride that completely scared the life out of me. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but there is one moment that definitely caught me by surprise because I wasn't expecting it at all, and if I was a younger kid I probably would have been even more scared than I was as a grown-up sat on it on my own, and that still gave me quite a bit of a jump, but it's so good. Again, all the theming in the ride and the set pieces is incredible, and the whole ride flows through very true to the tale of Pinocchio that you're so used to watching when you watch the film. And then when you go on the ride, you can certainly connect all the dots in the ride to what happens in the film, which I think is a great bonus. I just love it and I fell in love with it. I only managed to do it once as it does build up quite a queue, but I'm so glad I didn't miss it when I went, and I really enjoyed it. So the next attraction I have on my list is Buzz Lightyear's Laser Blast, and I think this is probably one of my favourite interactive dark rides ever. It's so much fun. There is a great mixture of screens and physical set pieces, and all of the theming and set pieces, like I've mentioned previously and as I will continue to mention, is amazing. I mean, it is Disney, so you kind of don't expect anything less, but even for me and my first visit to Disney, I was blown away, and all of the theming surpassed even my expectations of Disney, which is something I didn't think they'd be able to do. It's got a great storyline to the ride as well, where obviously you're going against Zorg, I'm pretty sure his name's Zorg, and obviously you're helping Buzz Lightyear, and I love the fact that you can spin your car, as again the whole ride is very 360. There's practically everything surrounding you, somewhere to shoot or a piece of theming to be looking at. So I think it's really nice that you have like a little control in your ride vehicle where you can spin it so you can see everything around you, and it definitely immerses you into the world of Toy Story and Buzz Lightyear, and it just makes it a really enjoyable ride. Again, I think this is one of the most popular rides at the park as it builds up those queues so quickly, but it's definitely one not to be missed when you visit Disneyland Paris. Next up is arguably the most popular ride in the Disneyland park. I'm probably really wrong, but based off of the queue times when I was there, this was definitely one of the most, if not the most popular ride, and that is Peter Pan's Flight. Honestly, I never saw this queue less than an hour, and it, even on the board it stated it was an hour when I went to queue, but luckily it was just a tiny bit shorter. I think I queued about 15 minutes for it towards the end of the day, but it had consistently kept up that length of queue, if not longer, from the get-go in the morning, which is really something. And it is just so popular. All the fast passes for it sell out, well, don't sell out, but they all get allocated to people so quickly and so early on in the day. You kind of, if you want to try and get a fast pass for it, my advice would be to go there at the beginning of the day and just wait until they go up for availability, as obviously at Disney you don't have to pay for the fast passes, unlike other parks in the UK or around the world. At Disney they are included, which is a bonus, but they go so quickly because of that fact that you don't have to pay for them, so you either have to queue or definitely get there early to pick up a fast pass time. So I found this ride really cute. It has beautiful scenes, again very familiar from the films. All the characters are very familiar, and one of my favourite scenes is where you're flying over London at night time. It's just beautiful, and it's like a little model London underneath you as the ride vehicle is elevated. It's really unique and it's a lot of fun, and I'm so glad I actually decided to queue for it, as I remember I was kind of debating whether or not I should continue to wait for it. So glad I did, as it was one of the nicest things to do towards the end of the day. It's very relaxing, and it's fun for all the family as well. Again, there are some lovely sound effects. Again, the animatronics are amazing for quite an old ride again, and it was just, for me, a very unique ride experience, as not many dark rides are elevated in the way that Peter Pan's Flight is, and I think it's something very special. And again, I only managed to do it the once, but I definitely next time will make sure I get a couple of rides on it, as it is just beautiful. Next up is a Disney classic, which is, of course, It's a Small World. This ride is probably the Marmite of Disney. You either love it or you hate it, and I absolutely adore it. I think it is a beautiful dark ride, and it's just so colourful. Like, the first thing you notice is the facade, it's so colourful and very bright, and it's eye-catching, and it grabs your attention, which is great. Another thing is, it is again one of Disney's very popular rides. It can build up a queue, which means a lot of people do enjoy it. Or I suppose when you go to Disney, you know so much about It's a Small World. It's just kind of one of those things that you have to witness at least once on your trip. It's beautiful inside the building as well as outside. There's lots of lovely theming, and it's all very bright and colourful inside as well, with all the different cities and continents that you travel through on the ride, and it's a long ride. It goes on for a long time. I can understand why people find it annoying though, as even if you haven't been to Disney or you haven't been on It's a Small World, I'm sure you are all very aware of the very catchy theme tune that comes along with it, and it gets stuck in your head, so I can see why that may grate on some people a little bit, but personally for me, I think it's just a wonderful ride. And it's nice because some of Disney's attractions are quite dark and mysterious, and then you have something like that which is just a load of fun, really light-hearted, so it definitely gives the right balance for your trip to Disney. Next up, we are quickly hopping over from the Disneyland park to the Walt Disney Studios park to talk about Ratatouille. Now, Ratatouille was the second trackless dark ride I've ever done. I'd only ever done Ninjago before, and I still haven't done many since Ratatouille. But hopefully I will be able to experience more in the near future. So I think it is a fab trackless dark ride. It's beautiful, and they've done really well to combine the amount of screens with the amount of physical set pieces in the ride as well. As sometimes if there's too many screens in a ride, it can cause a little bit of a headache for me, and I just come off not feeling 100%. But again, you wouldn't really expect anything less from Disney, but there's the perfect amount of screens and the perfect amount of set pieces, and all the screens are of very good quality, so it's not fuzzy at all. It's all very clear. Again, the whole area surrounding the Ratatouille building is lovely, and you're immersed straight into that world of a Parisian cafe restaurant kind of vibe, and it's amazing. Again, really cute, despite the whole thing being in French, obviously, because you're in Paris, so it would be there in their language. For an English speaking person, the storyline is also still really easy to follow, and I have to say it's one of my favourite dark rides I've ever been on, but there are a few that just top it, even at the Disneyland Resort alone. If I was just basing off the opinions I formed on my visit, there are 3 other attractions there that I managed to do that just ever so slightly top Ratatouille, so let's get on to talking about those as well. So in third place, when it comes to my favourite Disneyland Paris attractions, we have Snow White's Scary Adventures. For those of you who know me, Snow White is my favourite Disney princess, so her ride, of course, kind of automatically gains a place in the top 3. For one of the older rides, just like I mentioned for Pinocchio, there's some great effects. The animatronics are amazing, especially one involving the evil queen. I won't say what happens, but there is just one effect with her that blows my mind, and I don't know how Disney have managed to perfect that. I don't know how it happens. I don't know how it changes like that. But yeah, it's something really special. The ride definitely shows the more darker side of the tale that you know. Obviously, it's being called Snow White's Scary Adventures, you kind of sign yourself up for a little bit of a spookier side of the tale. But oh my gosh, if I was a younger child, some of the scenes on the ride would scar me, like especially the scene that you will remember from the film. I think it's one of my favourite scenes in the film, even when I was growing up, is when she's running through the forest and all the trees come to life and the crocodiles in the water try to grab her when she's running away from from the castle because the huntsman's told her to just run and save herself. That is very dark, and the way the vehicle moves through that room in the ride is very, very good, and you feel like the trees are really coming in close to you, and I just love it. Again, scary adventures. I love the spooky vibes to the ride, and it's nice to see my favourite princess have her story put into the ride, especially since it does show all the more happier side where she's in the cottage with the 7 dwarfs and they're all partying and listening to music and singing along, and then you go through a door and you just go into the complete spooky side of the tale, and I just think it's a beautiful ride, and Disney have certainly done her very, very proud. In second place, and my favourite attraction in the Walt Disney Studios park, it is of course the formidable Tower of Terror. I love this. It is one of the best drop towers I have ever been on, which may shock some of you, but I haven't been on many. And I think you just get so much incredible force when that thing drops for the first time, and then every other time after, the force is just relentless. And when I mean you fly out of your seat, I literally mean you fly out of your seat. All you have is a little seatbelt across your lap, and obviously you take your bags on the rides at Disney, and no word of a lie, my bag was on the floor wrapped around my legs, and it lifted up to about here on the ride because of how forceful those drops were. I love the pre-show in the library with the little movie showing and the person walking around you, very spooky, like he doesn't really talk to you, and he'll kind of just randomly come and stand by you and give you a little bit of a fright, and I love that. I love the storyline of the ride. I haven't been on it since it's had a small overhaul, where now I think you get 3 different stories, but the original one, when I went there, I loved the storyline. It made a lot of sense to me. It was really funny and also terrifying, especially when you're on the lift and you're kind of going through the story and then you see them fall on the other side, and you kind of think, uh-oh, what's going to happen to us? And then obviously you just get that feeling of falling, and it was just incredible. I love the theming inside the library, inside the actual elevator shafts, but of course the facade is incredible. It's so tall, it's quite, you know, it makes you feel quite scared just looking at it because it is such a huge facade. It's very daunting and kind of takes your breath away. It's got a real wow factor to it. So for those of you who know me personally, and I may have mentioned it once or twice on the channel before, I can't remember, but I used to have the biggest fear of drop towers. I hated them. I went to Portaventura about a year before I did the trip to Disney on my own and literally cried at the fact that I was being made to go on Hurricane Condor. I love it now, but back in 2018, drop towers were just a no-go for me. And then obviously I went to Disney on my own in 2019, and I was like, oh, you know what, you've heard so much about this, you have to go on it. And I'm very proud of myself that I forced myself to go on a drop tower by myself, because it quickly became my favourite drop tower I've ever been on. I loved it. I went on it probably 7 or 8 times in the 3-4 days I was at the resort, and I just loved it. But it's not my favourite attraction I've done at Disney. That belongs to one of the Disneyland park attractions, as you are about to find out. So my favourite Disney attraction I did when I went to Disneyland Paris, aside from the roller coasters, was Pirates of the Caribbean. Now, I will quickly mention now, before I go into why I love Pirates of the Caribbean so much, many of you are probably thinking, oh my gosh, she hasn't mentioned the Haunted Mansion. Well, when I went, it was shut. It was closed for refurbishments, but I will go into a little bit more detail about the Haunted Mansion and why I'm so gutted I missed it in one of the last videos I'm doing in this series. But anyway, back to the star attraction for me, which is Pirates of the Caribbean. It's just amazing. It's got a real wow factor. I spent the first time I went on it, I literally spent the whole time just like staring at everything in complete and utter awe of how amazing it looks. It is a real jaw-dropping dark ride, and it's one of the best in the world. I'm so lucky that I can easily get to Disneyland Paris just to experience that ride alone, because it is fantastic. You are immersed the moment you step foot in that queue line, and when you get into the indoor queue, it's just incredible. And I wanted to cry. I probably cried. Disney just makes me cry. The storyline is beautiful, and the actual ride is in a very beautiful setting. As the first bit, you've got like a cafe next to you where you can watch the ride go past, so it's nice to have that interaction with other guests. But to be honest, I didn't really pay much attention to them, as I was just so drawn in by everything that was going on the ride. I love the drops on the ride. They definitely come at a very surprising element. You don't really expect the first one, and then obviously you build up to that second drop, and it's just beautiful. One of my favourite rides of all time, really. Again, all the effects and the set pieces around the ride really make it. None of it looks out of place, none of it looks rubbish. The effects are timed perfectly, and they go off at the right times to really immerse you in that storyline that they have created. And there's just nothing else like it that I've been on. So that is why Pirates of the Caribbean is my favourite Disney attraction. So there we have it, my favourite Disneyland Paris attractions. I am really sorry if I've droned on at all in the video. I just wanted to make sure I could go into as much detail as possible about the rides and why I love them so much. I do hope you have enjoyed the video. Please do like, leave a comment and let me know what your favourite Disneyland Paris attractions are, or what you're most looking forward to on your visit to Disneyland Paris. If you haven't yet already, please do subscribe to the channel. It would mean an awful lot to me. I've got a lot more content coming up during lockdown, and then when we can start getting back out to places, I will have a lot of regular content coming up on the channel from a variety of places. I do hope you are all staying safe and keeping well, and I will see you in the next video. I have been Lou, and all that leaves me to say is